All right, so I dropped in the chat box the agenda for today. We may not be able to go over everything today just because there were certain people that were going to present on or share out on certain things. But let me go ahead and also pull that up on the screen just so that everybody is looking at the same thing. Can you all see that agenda okay? Just gonna make it a little bit bigger. Dismiss, okay. Great. So today we're going to talk a bit about the project's import lease expectations, specifically some potential considerations. Sal and Nick have started to kind of draft some elements that they'd like to see included. So we can certainly have a discussion on that today. And then also, I went through both the MCAS and CERP and pulled out goals that might apply in terms of something that would want to be elevated in that expectations document as well. I see John. I don't see John here today. Let me see if I see anyone in the waiting room. No. So we can certainly carry this on to the next conversation. Let's do that now. EV school bus update. I don't have an update for you all on that today. Things are kind of slowly moving in that direction, but I'll do my best to provide an update. And then also, Tim, if you are ready, we can also hear kind of the legislative policies that SANDAG is championing. And then I apologize. I need to work with Melina to get the APCDs, but I can talk on that next time as well. But are there any other items for today that would be important to include in today's discussion?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool, awesome. So we will start with, I guess, Tim, if you wanted to start
yeah,
with that, and then we can then transition, because I think the other one's gonna be a longer conversation. I want to make sure we have time for this one as well. And I'll stop sharing, and then if you'd like, you can also share your screen if you'd like.
great. Yeah, I can do that. Pull up. Let's see, which screen you're seeing the legislative program here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so good morning, everyone. So I just want to preface this as like work that I've done so far is like preliminary, not ready to post publicly any documents or anything like that, but starting having some conversations about how SANDAG's legislative program lines up with CERP implementation. Met with a member of our government relations team, and so more work to be done on this, but yeah, started looking at that. So just a little bit of background. So SANDAG creates a legislative program every year on a calendar year basis. So the one that we have right now is the 2023 calendar year program, and pretty soon we're going to be developing the 2024 program calendar year. And talking with our member of our government relations team, a lot of the program, the priorities, they come from our board members, and SANDAG board members are council members and mayors from all of the cities around the region. So it's typically elected officials, and then these priorities get established, they get brought before the board of directors, I believe it's the executive committee, for approval, and then this sets the tone for what the government relations team is going to be working on throughout the year in terms of the legislation that they'll be supporting or monitoring and then reporting back. So this is really like a work plan for our government relations team. And so the process for developing the 2024 is going to be like November, December is when things, priorities start being discussed, and then it gets adopted in January. And then that's what we'll be working on for the rest of the year. So it's a good time to be reviewing this, I think. seeing how it aligns with the CERP, and maybe proposing some new things for next year. So document, this is available on our website, and I put the link in the Google Drive folder, and I can show you where that location is later. So the document starts out with legislative and policy focus areas. So these are kind of just like the principles that SANDAG is supporting, and these are kind of established by policy. So equity, safety, innovative funding, financing, pilots and partnerships, project delivery and resiliency, climate, energy, and environment. I believe there's a couple others. Okay, 3 more. Binational border, tribal, military, and interregional collaboration, housing, affordable housing, and technology and data. And so these are like the general concept areas. These are the areas where we've identified that these are the things that we want to support. And this is based on the goals that SANDAG's trying to achieve through things like the regional plan, as well as the authority that we have through state law to pursue these different initiatives. So these get translated, these are concepts, into more specific actions and things that we should be supporting. So I think there's 2 pages of these, about 19, I want to say, that we're supporting. And they're all pretty specific, but and some of them are pretty technical in terms of kind of things that SANDAG staff have identified as barriers to implementing those kind of concept areas. And some of them they're kind of bureaucratic, having to do with the authority that SANDAG has to implement projects, the limitations that are imposed on certain funding. We get funding from state and federal governments. Sometimes those dollars can only be spent in certain ways. So that is challenging to implement all of the things that we want to implement. So some of these are supporting legislative changes that would allow us to be a little bit more flexible and to implement the things that we want to implement, like the regional plan, Baja California border master plan, more funding for transit, kind of more flexible funding. Yeah, and that's that. Supporting Vision Zero, that's a newer resolution, newer initiative for SANDAG. So yeah, anyway, there's several of these. Looks like there's 23 total, and then there's another a few more that are monitoring. So these ones, I think that they're kind of a little bit lower priority. They're kind of just things that we're monitoring, but not actively supporting when it comes to our GR staff, government relations. So I went through, we have the annual reports, annual status updates that the agencies that participate in the CERP implementation. We provide annual updates to APCD so that they can include those in their kind of consolidated list of what SANDAG's doing, what City of San Diego is doing, City of National City, et cetera, Port of San Diego. So I've got these strategies in here. So the goal E1 in SANDAG's responsibility, I interpret the CERP to be leading, developing an EV strategy for the region, including opportunities in Portside communities. So I went through each of these strategies that SANDAG's expected to be participating in, supporting and leading, and I identified where I think it aligns currently with what we have in the legislative program. So the climate, energy, and environment focus area, I think there's a lot of overlap there, and especially the supporting legislative priority number 9, which is efforts to advance clean energy and clean transportation policies, programs, and legislation consistent with regional energy and strategy and regional plan. And so for some of them, I think that there is a really good alignment already, and that there isn't like the second one, for example, Harbor Drive improvements in the regional plan. We're doing that already, and we're pretty actively advancing that project. And I wouldn't say that there's any particular legislative need at this point that is like hindering us advancing that project. So I think I didn't have any suggestions for how we might change the legislative priority for calendar year 24, but I did for some just kind of list a few different suggestions for things that could be added to the legislative priority that might align more with the CERP and align with the goals. And I think that adding some additional language about air quality monitoring and modeling, as well as health equity, gets to the spirit of the CERP and how we can, as an agency, help to implement it. So it's kind of just a few words there. Definitely open to suggestions from the group. And I want to do more with this in terms of like concrete suggestions about how we can make our legislative program more robust in terms of implementing these strategies. But I just kind of started to look and see how they're aligned and a few different suggestions. So I've got this document here. I wouldn't say it's really ready to share out completely yet because it's a draft and I want to keep on working with it. But yeah, I just kind of got started on that. And I'll just maybe highlight a couple others. I know one of these other strategies relates to truck parking. There's definitely overlap with our safety focus area. It relates to Vision Zero, especially for the safety of truck drivers and people living around where those truck parking facilities might be located. I noted that our legislative program, we talk about safety, but we don't specifically talk about truck parking. But we've identified that is important. So maybe adding truck parking as one of the priorities that Sandag might be pushing for when it comes to state and federal governments for additional funding to build and operate those types of facilities. I think that's an opportunity there. So I will pause, see if anyone has any comments or questions on this that I can try to answer. Joy.
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions. I just want to say I do support the things you're proposing adding. I think having a, air quality and health equity on the, the climate energy section really does make sense and does help align it with the CERP. And I like adding the truck parking too. It's something we all recognize we've needed for a long time.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. I think that's a good overview. What do you think about, given our discussion at the steering committee the other night on things like heavy weight allowances, where do you think that fits into this? Or is that going to be a priority of Sandag, or maybe some further analysis needs to be done? But do you think there's a fit in there for heavyweight allowances for zero emission vehicles?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know that it's in the blueprint implementation strategies to at least analyze that. I know, and I'm very interested in that. I think that as also part of the white paper that Sandag wrote along with Caltrans and ICTC on the zero emission freight transition at the border, that we recognize that weight limits are going to be an issue for transitioning zero emission trucks because the batteries are heavier and that could reduce payloads. If for early adopters, we want to encourage people to adopt zero emission vehicles, and we don't want there to be unnecessary regulations that prevent that. But also cognizant of what Keith Corey said at the CSC meeting the other night, which is increased wear and tear. If that falls on the cities, then that's not necessarily like the way we have our government agencies set up. Certain ones have different responsibilities. Like the cities might have extra responsibility to maintain those roads, and that isn't necessarily. We're just being cognizant of we want it to be reasonable, and also just if there's additional safety concerns, additional weight could be a concern that might kind of be something that kind of runs up against the safety in the Vision Zero focus area. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that we have like if we would specifically support that in the absence of more study. Yeah, but I do think we want to do more study about what the different considerations are. So yeah. I don't know if it belongs in like the legislative program right now, but I could see it as something that we pursue studying in terms of the funding we have available, or if we go out and apply for additional grants to do kind of more study on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can I? So I just want to add to that, Tim and Phil. The last number that I heard was something like adding like another 4,000 or 6,000 pounds to the limit, making it 84,000 or 86,000, something like that, trying to compensate for the battery or the weight of the vehicle, not so much affecting the cargo handling capabilities that are set now, right? I mean, so to keep it competitive and trying to encourage people to do the transition, that's one of their bigger issues. But as far as the studying or studies to be done, I think that the bridge formula is going to be put into question as far as the weight capacities of our bridges and roads that are currently our infrastructure, right? I mean, just because we add a weight or increase the weight capacity doesn't mean that that bridge is going to sustain that weight. So I think that Caltrans, or even working through you, Sandag, right, and saying what are the bridge limits or bridge formula limits for these roads, especially leaving, let's say, San Diego County or coming into San Diego, the bridges that are currently in part of the infrastructure, what they all have a capacity already, I think, adjusted or identifying or relating to the bridge formula of cargo coming in and out. So that might be a good place to start.
Yeah.
And at least that way it gives us some information, because I know that the state is looking to just looking to increase the capacity because of the batteries, but at the same time, then the problem is just going to domino to the next issue, right? So just because they approve the weight doesn't mean that that vehicle can, or our roads can handle it.
Yeah, for sure. I think if Sandag were to support something like that, I think we would be supporting additional funding to help, shore up, provide additional structural strength for those bridges, and additional maintenance funding. Yeah, because we don't want to create any issues where the bridges and the structures aren't equipped to handle that. And Sandag doesn't own any of the infrastructure for the most part. So that's also something that I think we would kind of generally support, but it's not our call. It's not Sandag's call about what the weight limits would be.
Correct. I'm just saying, as far as like a starting point for information, like as part of the research, like what are our roads capable of doing today or handling?
For sure. Yeah.
And then kind of go from there, because I believe in the spirit of increasing the weight limit, but at the same time, being a driver myself, stopping 80,000 pounds is already a problem. So it's just part of the issue of trying to transition into a cleaner environment operation. That's all.
Yeah,
I think so.
I agree, Sal. I think, yeah, I too. I mean, so far I'm an advocate for heavier weight limits, but I also don't know the answer to the bridge questions, to how much maintenance is going to be required for the roads. Also need to talk to some manufacturers of these trucks a little bit and say, okay, if we increase the weight to 86, 88, 90,000 pounds, can you carry it on the axles? Like, is that good? Can these trucks do it? And then how does that extra weight affect their range? So there are actually a lot of questions I think that still need to be asked about this. But it's just one of those little things, right, that's going to hinder adoption for some folks. And if it's a good legislative ask, meaning it's not going to do as much damage to the roads and bridges that we may think, then it might just help that driver say, oh, okay, with that extra weight, I'll be able to compete with a diesel truck that can carry more. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Look forward to studying more and hoping to answer some of those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a great conversation, and I have kind of two reflections / like conversation, continuing conversation. So to Phil's kind of point of like identifying additional elements that aren't currently in like the Sandag's legislative priorities, I'm wondering, in addition to this kind of this truck weight conversation, are there other potential elements that are in the CERP that would either require or be helped by it being part of a legislative priority or program of Sandag, or even APCD for that matter? I don't think we have to like necessarily answer that question today, but I think that might be something for us to kind of, both APCD and Sandag, and even the port, right, that has a set of legislative priorities, to even look through the CERP and identify things that could benefit from the use of legislation. And I think that would be something that certainly APCD can commit to kind of looking at too, but also you know, each agency kind of has its own you know, board members' priorities and interests. So it may not be that like the ledge priorities that APCD has is essentially going to be like carbon copied for Port or Sandag, but it, you know, whatever makes sense for, given the role of your agency, right, to have that set of legislative priorities that we can all kind of be collectively in our own way moving forward. So just that's kind of one question in my mind, like what are other opportunities that we haven't really included yet? Yeah, Phil.
Oh, no, I was gonna let you speak. I think you had 2 points, right?
I had 2 points. So that's
Yeah.
the first point, and then I'll get to the second points because it's a little bit different. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't have a response. I was gonna actually maybe take us in a different direction, so I'll let
Okay.
you finish.
Yeah. So the second point, so that's just kind of like one big question, like, hey, can we like each kind of dive in from our respective agencies, look for other legislative opportunities? So that's one point. And then the second one is just thinking about how can Portside CSC actually be active in this legislative space. Like, is it like, you know, each of our agencies sometimes organizes like you know, visits, you know, to different representatives? Is it like CSC writing letters of support for these different legislative? So like, what are kind of the menu of options that we could potentially, as a subcommittee, propose to CSC to be more active in the legislative space, to show support for these things where there's, you know, synergy between CERP implementation and the, you know, the agency's legislative priorities as well. So that's just another kind of big question we don't have to answer today, but I just want to plant the seeds for those two, so that the CSC is a little bit more, if they're interested, right, is a little bit more involved and engaged in these conversations around legislation. So those are just kind of two seeds I wanted to plant, but yeah.
Yeah, those are things I think about too, Monique, a lot when we're talking at the steering committee level and also on these calls of, you know, how could the steering committee, you know, advocate for whether it's legislation or following other things that are going on in the state from the regulatory side to, I don't know what to call it, like policy side. Like, for example, on my screen right now, I have opened up the CARB's funding plans that, you know, they'll be reviewing in November with their board. Like, those are important things, I think, to review and evaluate. And if appropriate, excuse me, the steering committee could support it. It could make comments on it. It could advocate for things to be included in it. It's kind of a question of time, you know, how much time does you know, do our members have to do that? Some of us are doing it as part of our day jobs, and I guess we could maybe share some of the, maybe, you know, if the port is going to comment on it, or if Sandag is, or if Sal is, you know, we could share that information and maybe generate support. So I guess that's the conundrum a little bit, is, you know, our resource availability as a steering committee and subcommittee on these issues. Legislation, just for me personally, like I'm not savvy in that arena. You know, we have a legislative people. You've met David Yao before. He knows that stuff like the back of his hand. For me, it's like a black box on how that stuff gets done. But certainly following, you know, what CARB is doing, I pay pretty close attention to that stuff, and, you know, try to comment where I see appropriate. So I guess I probably didn't answer your question other than
no, but I mean, I think that's a good set of questions, right? Because it may not be every single legislative element or opportunity that would support the CERP, but like, it's like, how do we prioritize which ones, you know, based upon kind of whatever the metric is like greatest impact or particular priorities. And then also, how does that then align with kind of folks' capacity, right? Because there's certainly going to be more things out there that CSC could support and could, you know, the community could benefit from, but just we may not have the capacity to do that. That could be like someone's, multiple people's, right? And within their agency's full-time job, right? So I think that's kind of a really good question to keep in mind as we're thinking about, because I think the CSC does have an important role to play and should be in that space, but how do we, how does the committee and how provide recommendations for the overall CSC to prioritize which of those things as well? And then what kind of menu of options and level of action, right? Is it like maybe for one element, it's so important that people do want to dedicate like doing a capital visit, right? Maybe for other things it's less, right? So it doesn't have to be a one size fits all approach to every single legislative element. So I do want to say welcome, Leslie. I apologize if you were waiting in the waiting room for a while. I just saw that you were there, but welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. And sorry, I was late to begin with, so it's not entirely your fault. And then I'll do another apology to say I'm going to have to leave a little early. But thanks for the welcome.
Yeah, thanks. And Leslie, it's the first time you and I are meeting. And so my name is Monique. I'm with the Air Pollution Control District and their Office of Environmental Justice. So I support a lot of the work that CSC is doing. And so you'll see me a lot in these different spaces. But does everybody know Leslie? Or do you know everyone on this call, Leslie?
No, I don't. Maybe I'll introduce myself really quickly.
Yeah, and then
I know. Perfect.
Yeah.
Leslie Nishihira, I'm the Ports Planning Director. I've been with the agency for close to 20 years now. And my purview's more so on long range planning, master planning efforts, along with climate and sustainability being my two main teams. And so Phil's the lead on that team and doing a fabulous job with all of this and catching me up and bringing me up to speed. So morning.
Awesome. Thanks, Leslie. Let's go to Sal, Tim, and then Joy for introductions.
So Salvador Abrica, Teamsters Local 542 here in San Diego. Political coordinator, organizer, truck driver by trade. I come out of the ports of LA and Long Beach as a misclassified driver, as everyone calls independent driver. I used to own my own truck and have lived through the process of the Clean Air Action Plan, where the trucks were imposed on everyone and then found out that it wasn't really sustainable. So my goal is to support the goals here to zero emissions, and at the same time make sure that it's a sustainable step that we take, not having to go back and finance the trucks that we financed in 2008, 2023. Maybe it's the last truck we financed, I don't know. But at the same time, is the correct person receiving the grants or the funding for that? At the end of the day, it's about make sure the communities that we live in are taken care of through this process.
Nice to meet you, Sal. I've heard the name, just never met you face to face. So.
All right, that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, but we'll leave it there.
I talk about you all the time, Sal.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks.
Hi, Leslie. Nice to meet you. My name's Tim Garrett. I'm a regional planner with Sandag. I've been a Sandag rep on the Portside Community Steering Committee for a little over a year now. And then my role at Sandag is in the goods movement planning. And that's kind of within the strategic partnerships team of regional planning. So working on regional plan stuff, as well as implementation of projects like Harbor Drive 2.0, which is nearby the port's jurisdiction. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
My turn. Hi, Leslie. We have met before. It's been a few years. So nice.
You doing, Joy?
Nice to see you again. Hope you're well and your kids. And
yes, we got a sick ones. Both are sick right now. So,
so I'm retired at this point, but still on the steering committee as an alternate, and have a small level of involvement in EHC's air quality work. Normally, it's Nick Powell, who's EHC's air quality advocate, who's on this committee. I'm sitting in for him today. So welcome.
Nice to see you, Joy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, welcome, Leslie. Great to have you in the space. What I'm going to do, Leslie, just for your benefit too, I'm going to put in the chat box kind of our agenda that we're following today as well. And then in the meeting invite, you would have seen a link to a Google Drive folder where everything in the subcommittee, discusses, and documents that are shared kind of living on that drive. So we just kind of completed our conversation, unless anyone wants to add to the conversation around legislative priorities, but we just completed the conversation around that. Do folks feel ready to transition to the next part of our agenda? Yes, Sal.
So I was just going to add that as far as the legislative work that we do and a potential way to handle it from the CSC is potentially bringing it to the CSC as we all have different contacts, different approaches to handling legislature. And if it's something that's approved by CSC within our meetings, right? Because I'm constantly meeting with legislators, and I mentioned the work that we do in AB 617, CSC members, but what do we stand behind? What do we need? So if it's something that's being potentially put out by the CSC as a whole, saying, hey, look, these are the topics that we're okay to talk about and push with when you meet with different legislators, and then have either talking points and or a point of contact to get the details, right? Because we can get in the door, we can open the door, but then to have that detailed conversation is like Phil said, that's not my realm of things to explain whatever it is that we're trying to explain, right? I mean, I know why I'm going there to talk to these legislatures. There may be, our member related issues that we're having, but when it comes to explaining the CERP and those potential approved topics that we can present to the legislatures, we're going to have a point of contact, whether that's through the Air Pollution Control District or whomever, maybe even push them back to our SANDAG, who's best fit to address that particular topic.
Yeah, that's a really good idea in terms of kind of a strategy. And I'm almost thinking like in the same way that each of our kind of public agencies, right, has kind of first staff kind of convene and collect some recommendations for legislative priorities, like this subcommittee can do the same thing, like looking at, we don't have to start from scratch. We can look and say, okay, these are the CSC's legislative priorities, but we can look at what are the legislative priorities of SANDAG, the port, even the union, APCD, which are the ones that CSC specifically, like highlighting those, right? That the CSC is going to like kind of support as kind of a package, so to speak, right? And then we can have a fact sheet background on, the CSC and the CERP. And then that, like you said, like it couldn't, one potential menu of options could then empower each of us when we are having those conversations with legislative staff or even the legislators to say, and these are the things also the CSC specifically supports, right? So maybe and we could certainly discuss that more in terms of like how we'd roll that out, but it almost seems like it merits kind of the same kind of, but to a lesser degree, right? Because we're not starting kind of from scratch, kind of the same kind of like subcommittee conversation where the subcommittee provides a set of recommended legislative priorities, but and not necessarily, I mean, if it arises, and so be it, but like not necessarily coming up with new ones, so to speak, but like what are the ones out there that we want to kind of move forward. But yeah.
Yeah, and I would just say, we have to kind of identify like what's the gap that we want to fill, right? When you go talk to somebody, you want to say, hey, look, there's something that's not here that you as a legislator can help us achieve, right? So I think we need to identify what that is. So for example, going back to the zero emission trucks, like I'm always trying to look at like what is the barrier for adoption, and is there a fix there, like more funding, better funding for small fleets, is there the heavy weight allowance that we were talking about. So maybe as a group we just, and it may take a little time to figure out like what are those gaps that we should be advocating for?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think that's certainly, and I've been kind of creating, as folks have been talking, kind of the tentative agenda for the next time this group meets in November. And I think like kind of unpacking all those kind of questions we've been asking and starting to think about what's kind of the next steps around that is going to be an important area of focus the next time we meet as well. So okay, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and to folks' benefit here, I'm gonna post in the chat box the link to where the documents we'll be looking at are currently living. And so as we transition to the port project and lease expectations, I'm also gonna go ahead and share my screen. Let me try to do that here. Second. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So you're gonna see a couple of things here. So this is in the port lease expectations folder. There's 3 different documents and we probably won't be able to get through all of them today, but I think certainly want Phil to share what he shared. So this one here is what I did is I, based upon our conversation from last time, is I looked at both the MCAS and the CERP goals to pull out potentially elements that would be taken into consideration for the port lease expectations and I would also put port project. Projects. And so I looked at CERP goals and timeline, and then also MCAS goals and timeline. And then also from the CERP specifically, I pulled out some elements, some actions and goals in the CERP that actually would align very well with potential community benefits. So things that an entity could channel funding towards in terms of community benefits that align with CERP goals and actions. So that was just kind of my high level looking at both CERP and MCAS. What you see here highlighted in gray, they're CERP goals. I just left them in there, but they're not necessarily, I think, things that would be a part of this document because they're more specific towards APCD or others taking a particular action, like developing a health risk assessment or what have you. But I left it in here so that folks can see, like, holistically what are the CERP goals. But I don't think the things in gray would necessarily live in kind of an expectations document because it's not necessarily directed towards or have in some way a connection to a particular entity's realm of responsibilities or something that they could do or be expected to do. So I just wanted to share that, and I won't go over this in detail today, but just wanted to share, like, these are some of the things I started to kind of pull out that could potentially be included in the list of project and lease expectations. Also, Nick shared with me this morning, and this is in the folder as well that I shared with you all. He was specifically looking at, I believe, like support letters that EHC had written specifically around MCC and other kind of projects discussed in the last year or so, and kind of pulling out elements from there that they'd like to see in terms of expectations. And I'll let Nick, the next time we get together, kind of present this. But I wanted to highlight this so that folks know that that's in that document. And then lastly, and I'll turn it over to Sal to kind of go over this as well. Sal was also did similar thing as well, right? From his experience in doing community benefits agreements and his experience as being part of the Portside CSC, started to kind of draft some key elements, and even kind of like what maybe the flow of this would look like, but some key elements that would be important in Sal's perspective, right, to be included in terms of the set of expectations. Before I turn it over to Sal, one of the things I do want to highlight is that there's probably going to be redundancies in each one of these documents and things that are unique, right? And so as this committee starts to think through what should be kind of in that unified draft list of expectations for projects and port leases, you know, would be kind of maybe combining these things and also determining priorities and all of that. So there's kind of 3 sets of working documents. The first one I shared is really kind of geared towards CERP and MCAS goals. The second one also has those elements as well, but is also coming up from like a public health perspective. And then this third one as well has both kind of public health, community benefits, and also I think a really important component is also the labor component as well, to take into consideration. So they're going to be each a little bit different, but ultimately I think our goal will be to pull out from each of those documents to then collectively make a cohesive kind of draft set of expectations and all. But we have a good foundation to start with. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And Sal, if you'd like to share, if it's easier for me to share the page, Sal, I could do that, but I also put the link to the document you shared with me, and we could spend the next 15 minutes going over that. And like I said, the next time we meet, we can have Nick share, and then I could share a little bit more. Mine is pretty straightforward, and you all know the goals of CERP and MCAS, but we can discuss that more when we get together. But Sal, would you like to share your screen, or do you want me to share it?
I think you can share it. I think that it's going to take a minute for people to review it, for all of us to review it.
Yeah.
And I just want to give an explanation of what it is in the time that we have. And then when we reconvene, then we can, I agree with you that the documents that we have, we're going to have to combine them and find a way to have one document cover these things, and there are overlapping topics. But what I wanted to make sure that we I guess register is that when it says Portside or port, anything like that, we're talking about the communities as a whole. It's not necessarily just the port, or let's call it on that side or Harbor Drive. It's also the projects that are being developed or through the exchange of developments on the outside of the port authorities or control, right? I mean, we're talking the communities themselves. These are the jobs. These are the if anyone comes in, contractor, developer, new business coming into the area. These are the things that we should be looking at to provide towards a community benefit packet, whether it's from the environmental side or the labor side. At the end of the day, it's about what benefits the community are receiving in exchange for the business being there, right? I mean, it could be the cleanest operation that we have, but at the same time, like local hires in here. We have we have some local hire stuff. Try to make sure that or I should just go down the list and just touch on it, but it's pretty straightforward. To make sure that the community is involved in the approval of this project or this development. The port and has done a great job of the outreach and making sure that the stakeholders are involved. But I think that through the CSC that we need to be more involved in that and making sure that not only that the CSC members are present and give our 2 cents, but at the same time help with the outreach. It's just to make sure that we have all possible contributions being received towards that development approval. So it's the community feedback and input. That's number one. How we would go about that, and obviously the more details. This is just an overview of it, but once we narrow down what we're able to do through the CERP or MCAS, then and then identify those that are challenging, then we may be able to squeeze in. Then once we have that decided, of what's applicable, what's a challenge, and what's definitely not happening, right? Not through this format, then we can focus in into those, or dive deeper into those and detail them out. That's the idea of this draft that I presented, or I'm presenting, right? And so then the next one would be the community, the creation of a community-led oversight board. I know that we already kind of have that, but there's where does it land as enforcement or being able to enforce certain things, right? I know that we can go to the board, the port to the port board of commissioners and address them there, but at the same time, or other boards to try to address the issue that we may have. But how much weight do we really carry as a body, right? If you have the oversight committee, if you want to call it, it's just how much weight and where would we have to go to address these issues, not just like, well, we believe this is wrong, this project's coming up short, what do we do from there, right? So it's like, it's one thing to establish a board, but then if you have no teeth, then what's the point, right? So that's the next one. And then the community workforce agreements, that's just bringing like the standard of wages up, local hire, providing for state approved apprenticeship programs to be used, like have a preference towards these different needs that the community has, right? It's creating even a training center to where the local tenants can contribute towards, so that they can have a pipeline of employees coming towards them in due time, right? There's apprenticeship programs, there's trade programs already that we can not necessarily create, they're already out there. We can identify them and say, hey, you know what, when you have a job posting, instead of just putting it out to the public, how about you go here first, right? Because then that kind of pulls from the local community, and therefore brings the question to, is it local community restricted to the Portside affected communities through the AB 617, or is it like a little more broad than just that, than just restricted to the very communities that are affected or identified through AB 617. The one that you see there is helmets to hard hats. That's basically something that we have here with the Teamsters that we established years ago to take veterans exiting from service, and it's helmets to hard hats because it was based on construction, but in all seriousness, it's all inclusive, right? If someone's coming out there, are you a truck driver? They don't necessarily need to go into construction. There can be other jobs, UPS, ABF, US Foods, Cisco, that are out there that are hiring, and they show a little preference. And, as long as everything else clears, you'll get the job, so those, like, just being able to, again, feed the system with those that would be in need for assistance transitioning. And then obviously safety programs, I think that we can all agree with. And then just some kind of labor management procedures. Again, these things are not necessarily meant to abide by or be part of the CERP itself or within our authority to implement, but it's definitely worthwhile addressing. And then, if we adopt it, we adopt it. We don't, right? I mean, it's just one of those things that maybe too far out there, saying that, we need to establish these these procedures, whatever they may be. And then the next one is again, first source of employment, job centers. I believe they're already out there. I think there's a couple in the area that we can potentially name, not necessarily create, right? And then direct some funding towards that. And then the next portion of it is just identifying the need for that, the need for the training into transition into electrification, and just trying to capture all the opportunities of work in the area to be able to stay within the area, right? We don't want our community to have to travel now to work in exchange for the cleaner environment. They should be able to have some kind of training to transition into these new jobs. And then the good jobs, the tenet of the Portside communities will provide good jobs, not just any job. Again, it's just trying to make sure that they're quality jobs, that they're career jobs. It's not necessarily establishing a wage scale, but it's definitely saying, hey, you know what, we want quality jobs here in the area to be able to attract the local community and not have to have that community traveling out, adding more to the carbon footprint. So it's a two-way street. If I can walk or ride my bike to work, then there's no need for the carbon footprint to increase when I can stay local to work. And then the last part of it is just timelines to reduce impacts, right? It's just what is your plan, right? You're coming in here, there should be a plan developing to transitioning, just like the issue that we had with the CMX, right? The truck part, there was no transition plan. Obviously the technology wasn't available, but you could at least present us with a plan of to when how we're going to get there, and at least you have the concept in mind. And then it's just working through truck traffic. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of stuff that overlaps, and maybe we can just reduce it down to what does overlap, and then focus on that. And then the last one, improve surrounding communities. So the tenants would all contribute funds, or there should be some fund base towards the local community infrastructure improvements, right? And it's kind of weird to say it this way, but it kind of seems like a tax or to play, right? If you want to be in the area, you need to contribute towards the ongoing improvements that we're all seeking. So again, I don't think the CERP has the authority to implement a tax, but at the same time, if the project developer and or tenant is willing to participate and support local educational programs, I don't see why we can't have the conversation at the very least. But that's a quick overview of it. And it's just trying to figure out how we can make it sustainable in the agreements that we have or may have.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sal. I think this is, and this is certainly a lot, right, for the subcommittee and also CSC members at large, right, to continue to discuss and help shape. But I think I really appreciate this because in my perspective is that one thing is that an element that wasn't necessarily as uplifted in the CERP is just really thinking about what does a just transition look like, particularly for workers. And I think this really fills a lot of that gap. And, as was mentioned before, this is a set of kind of community expectations, right? It's not necessarily, something that a board is adopting. It would be great, right, if that were the case. But I think to include this or include elements of thinking about the workforce in that, in my perspective, fits well, and should live with under that kind of set of expectations as well. But certainly folks in this subcommittee space and also the larger CSC members, there's certainly a lot to unpack and discuss, and but excited to see that this is part of the conversation and is an important part of the conversation to make sure that we're not leaving folks behind, folks in the community, in you know, in Portside communities and also other communities behind as this transition will happen. You know, transition is inevitable, but a just one is not. You know, things will transition. And so just really appreciate you uplifting this. So thank you.
I've had the opportunity or the encounters with people living in the Imperial Valley, driving all the way to Nashville to work, right? I mean, I don't tell anyone where they should live,
Yeah.
you know, but at the same time, when we have a workforce here local, I've never understood that. My job has always been within 30 minutes of where I live, you know.
Yeah, and then there's this like other component too, right? In terms of like affordability, housing affordability and living wages that like continues to push people further and further out from being able to secure a job where, you know, in close proximity to where they live. So yeah, I just want to, I know we're at 10, but I just want to check in and see if anyone has any thoughts or questions to share with Sal about what about his presentation before we log off for today.
I just want to say thanks a lot, Sal. Really appreciate having a document to respond to now. I think it's a lot easier to kind of like conceptualize what this community expectations document looks like now that we have a draft of it. So really appreciate you getting started on it.
Yeah, I'd add to that. It's fantastic. Thank you for working on this, Sal. As Monique said, there's a lot to unpack and you know, and think about, but it seems really comprehensive and really great to see it. So thank you for working on it.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, Sal. And you guys have heard me say this before, and I'll always say it, is that I think that the focus is on all projects, leases, anything that occurs in the Portside community. I know the port will always naturally have a focal point to it, but there's all kinds of projects that are going to occur in that community, all types of agencies that are approving them and providing permits to people to operate in that area. And so I think whatever those expectations are of the port, it should be the expectation of anybody else that's in that community. And I've seen other, you know, projects occurring in the community, especially along the roadways, Harbor Drive and other streets in the Portside community that I don't think we've ever talked about. And there's gensets, there's trucks, there's all kind of equipment operating right there on the streets next to homes. And so if these are our expectations, I think that needs to be uplifted to everybody.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well. And I think that's supportive actually of one of the goals of the CERP, which is goal number 1 is around reducing diesel particulate matter from 2018 levels by 80% at all Portside community locations. So it's not just like the port specifically, but essentially the first goal is kind of just to reduce emissions, you know, below 80% of the 2018 kind of like baseline, right? And so that accounts for everything that's kind of going on in that community. So kind of taking that broader lens or approach is really kind of defining like the expectations for anything that happens in there. And I think that's supportive of goal number 1 in the CERP. So cool. Well, thanks for hanging in. I think we had a really great conversation today. I started to kind of, based upon our conversation today, started to kind of fill out the agenda for the next time we meet. We're going to have a little bit less time next time we meet than we usually, just because there's going to be a lot of updates from each of the public agency partners in terms of the actions they've been taking towards CERP implementation. So we might as a group only have like 30 to 45 minutes or so at max. But I think that we have not only with this conversation around projects and lease agreements, but and then with the what is it, the legislative kind of agenda, I think we have some really good foundational elements and in both of those pieces that we can continue that conversation the next time we meet. So thank you all, and I'll send out this recording to folks who weren't able to join today to catch them up on all the great work that you all are doing. So thank you all.
Thanks
Thanks, everyone.
All right, take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.